UnCanadian by B. Constant. Collapse. Conclusion. James grabbed my wrist and yanked me up from the hospital bed, hard. A sharp, familiar ache flared beneath his grip, down deep in my bones. It never dulled, a tenderness that never fully healed. I said, "Move." This wasn't new. I wasn't surprised. I had already learned to expect it. I adapted, convincing myself this was strength as I braced for what came next. Still, my lips stayed shut. Didn't cry out, didn't react. I had learned that a tiny flinch could set him off, that a gasp, a wince, even a breath drawn too sharply. James hated feeling like the bad guy, hated being reminded of what he'd done. If I let it slip, if I made a sound, if my face twisted in pain, then it wasn't just my suffering anymore. It was his. I stayed still. I stayed silent to make it easier for him. I couldn't bear making him feel like a monster. "Look what you made me do," he wailed, mouth wide open, hands raised to the sky, a tragic figure on a stage pleading with some unseen force. Am I doomed to always inflict this pain? He'd break, not from guilt but from despair. I had put him in this position. I had made him hurt me. Deep down, I knew that James wasn't the monster. I was. I made him into this. I was the one who failed him. We stormed past the medical staff, past the waiting patients. I could feel their eyes. They'd heard everything. Their judgment felt hot, thick and suffocating. The whole hospital turned against him, hated him. He stopped, abruptly, his breath ragged, his body trembling with rage. But it wasn't just anger. It was something else, something alive, something that fed off of every horrified stare. He wasn't just feeling their judgment. James stopped abruptly, turning to the stunned onlookers, drinking in their horrified stares. James absorbed it. A sponge, a performer. And now, an audience. Then came the explosion. The tantrum. Not just anger, not just frustration, but a meltdown. Raw, unfiltered, unstoppable. James threw his hands in the air, pacing in jagged, stomping lines as if his body couldn't contain it. His fists clenched, unclenched, his face twisted, red, furious, his words slurred together, tripping over themselves in an avalanche of outrage. His voice ripped through the prenatal ward, bouncing off the walls, forcing itself on everyone, on anyone, close enough to hear. As he screamed obscenities, demands. If they wouldn't be in awe of his talent, they'd be in awe of his rage. They'd damn well pay attention. "Do not judge me," he roared. "I am the victim here." Then he turned on me, like I had wronged him. "I have been forced here," he sneered, and then louder to them. "Isn't everyone happy to see me?" They stared, some appalled, some frozen, some unable to look away. And then his attention snapped back to her, the young hospital tech, his real victim. She stood frozen, shoulders hunched, hands clasped like a child in trouble. Tears slipped down her cheeks. She had no idea what she was up against. "You need to hear this. Everyone needs to hear how fucking horrible that woman is at her job." James leaned in, his voice sharp as a blade. "Never again. A command, a sentence, a verdict. Thank God all you have to do is this one small insignificant task," he spat. "Thank God your incompetence will never kill someone. Thank God you'll never have a job of real medical importance." Then he turned to me. His next words hit like a shove. I said, "Move." He was too mad to be an adult. For a second I forgot that this was my husband, that this was a grown man unraveling in the middle of a hospital corridor, that the people around us weren't strangers, they were witnesses. I only saw a little boy, overwhelmed, shaking, desperate for control and losing it all the same. My hands moved without thinking. I looked down at my belly, a soft, soothing circle. I'd done this before, hadn't I? Comforted a tantrum, whispered, "Hush, hush, it's okay." But this wasn't a child. This was James. I looked back up at him, at the man towering over me, at his heaving chest, his clenched jaw, his hands trembling with the force of his own tortured fury. And I remembered. This wasn't some fleeting storm. This was my life. And just like that, with one outburst too many, he became the bad guy. The shift was palpable. A single misplaced expression, and suddenly the whole hospital turned against him, hated him. Let's go be a happy family somewhere else. It all became too fast to stop, too fast to breathe, too fast to process the exact moment when it all became chaos. The fluorescent lights flickered too bright. The shuffle of feet scraped against the tile, deafening. Someone's breath hitched, too sharp, too loud. The pounding of a heartbeat, mine, theirs, his, an unbearable drumbeat in my ears. Everything around me kept moving. Nurses rushing forward, reacting like there was an emergency. But there wasn't. Not enough to stop what was happening. Not enough to change the outcome. Just enough to stretch it out, to drag out every unbearable second, to make me feel all of it. But they weren't coming for James. They weren't rushing to his rescue. I saw the moment James realized it too. The second the room turned against him, the second there was no coming back. For a second I only thought of myself. My happiness. Because I had wanted him to be here. Because I had forced him away. This was my fault. I had let go. I had stopped obsessing, stopped fixating on him. And look what had happened. They swarmed the attendant instead, gathering around her, comforting her, as if she were the victim. But that didn't make sense. I was the one he was mad at. I was the one who had caused this, wasn't I? But I knew the truth. I was the only one who saw it. It wasn't the hospital staff. They were fine. Shaken maybe, but fine. It wasn't the attendant, and it sure as hell wasn't me. The real victim was James. Something had happened to him. Something deep. Something none of them could understand. He was the one hurting. He was the one in pain. And yet, no one looked at him. No one helped him. This shouldn't have happened to him. He's a musical genius. The excited hum of the hospital had evaporated. No more small talk, no more happy expectant voices. The air was sharp with tension, as if everyone had been thrust into some silent collective awareness. No one moved, except to step aside. James walked through the hospital hallway, parting the crowd like death itself. No one approached, no one stepped up, no one played the hero. "You knew this was going to happen," he yelled, his grip tightening around my wrist as he pulled me forward. And the worst part? He was right. I had known. I had seen the signs, the simmering anger, the passive-aggressive sighs, the sharpness in his voice. A warning. I had known, but I hadn't let myself see it. Not really. Not until now. Past all the eyes. Wide. Staring. Burning into me, dragging me away from them. Away from the hospital. Away from the truth I had spent so long refusing to face. Back to the apartment. Back to where he was king. "You knew I would hate this," he spat, voice thick with fury. And maybe I had. Maybe deep down, I'd always known. The elevator doors slid shut, but not before I caught one last glimpse of the people in the hallway. All of them staring, frozen, trying to make sense of what they'd just seen. Mothers-to-be, hands resting on their round bellies, some clutching their children a little tighter. Husbands standing close, hovering, protective. There was no admiration in their eyes. When we were finally alone, James turned to face me. His eyes were wet, his voice raw with accusation. I could feel the weight of his pain I had caused. His eyes weren't just crying, they were weeping, not from guilt, but from despair. Look at what I had done. He loomed over me in the cramped elevator, trembling with rage, his voice cracking. "How could you make me do that?" he wailed. "In front of all those people. I thought you loved me." He was a grown man, but inside he was still a boy. Vulnerable, sensitive, desperate to be loved, to be the most special person in the room. And right now, he needed me. Tears streaked down his face and my heart cracked open for him. My wrist throbbed, dull, persistent, from where he had yanked it moments ago, but I barely noticed. Not when he was looking at me like that. Not when he was suffering. God, what kind of person was I? A monster. "Please," I whispered. "Forgive me." Nobody saw him the way I did. They saw what was right in front of them. His greatness wasn't obvious to them, but me? I saw what he would be. I could see it, clear as anything, and that made me the lucky one. And when I turned back, when I looked again, the elevator door was open. The hallway stretched long and silent, lined with faces, wide-eyed, disbelieving, not at him, at me. Because after everything, after the screaming, the judgment, the spectacle, James had wept, and I had held him, my arms around his shaking frame, my lips against his damp hair, loving, forgiving. The hallway was empty, except for one, just you. You made it to the end. You understand, don't you? You must. You see him. You see me. You're not like them. I'm the lucky one.